So, Race Hustler Rhetoric explained. Coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Common Sense Logic Reason. And as always, I want to say thank y'all for joining me today. So, if you watch any of my videos for length of time, you know that I have a series of videos that I call Race Hustler Rhetoric. And every now and then I have to make another video called Race Hustler Rhetoric basically explaining exactly what Race Hustler Rhetoric is, going to a deeper meaning of what it actually is. So when you see these videos, you get a better understanding of where I'm going with the concept of Race Hustler Rhetoric. And by the way, this is a thumbnail that I use on all my Race Hustler Rhetoric videos. But essentially, Race Hustler Rhetoric is nothing but it's a series of excuses that black people try to use to show that America is a racist country with all this systemic racism and white supremacy. That's essentially all it is. Now, the reason why I call it Race Hustler Rhetoric is because race hustlers come up with this nonsense, and then it spreads word of mouth, and then it just gets spoken to the point that it becomes rhetorical. And it's so bad that, in my view, the majority of black people in America, they can give you the example of Race Hustler Rhetoric, specific example, but most of them can't even explain it. They don't even know what it is. They can't explain it. They just shout out. And oftentimes, if you ever get into a debate with these blacks, all you ever do, and actually for the most part, all they ever do is just regurgitate all the Race Hustler Rhetoric that they've been brainwashed with. And if you understand and you know, you can come in and destroy it. That's why I make these videos about Race Hustler Rhetoric. But anyway, there are 3 categories of Race Hustler Rhetoric that I've identified. And the first one is what I call end result thinking. Now, end result thinking is a process of looking at the end result of something, finding any area in society in which black people are, and again, end result thinking from the standpoint of black people, finding any area in society in which black people are lagging behind white folks, they're not equal to or on par with white people. They look at the end result and they just automatically assume it's happening because of racism and white supremacy. Now, they never look into the why, the actual real why of how we got there. They just look at the end result. They look at the stats, the end result, and any area in which black people are not equal to white folks, or on par or level with white people, they'll assume it's white supremacy, without any evidence that it is white supremacy. It's just an assumption. Now, a perfect example of end result thinking would be more time for the same crime. You hear these race hustlers say this is again race hustlers. Some race hustler created this nonsense, and then other black people jumped on it, and now they all speak it to the point that it's rhetorical. Now, according to them, that the average black person gets more time than the average white person for doing the exact same crime. Now, although this is true, the problem is that there's legitimate reasons why. And the number one reason why black people get more time for the same crime is because black people commit crime at a far higher rate. I mean, if we look at the FBI statistical data, they track 31 categories, including total numbers of crime. And if you go across the board for all categories, white people outnumber us 5-1, but yet they only commit 2.5 times as much crime, which means that black people commit crime at a higher rate. In order for white people to commit crime at the same rate as black people, each category would have to be 5 times that of what black people do, and it's not. It's maybe 1 or 2 categories that's where the white column is more than 5 times that of the black column, but on average, it's only 2.5 times as much, between 2 and 2.5 times as much. So black people are committing crime at a higher rate. And if a black person commits crime at a higher rate, the typical average black person who stands before a judge typically stands before a judge with a longer criminal arrest record, something that's taken into consideration when sentencing is handed down. Also, if you notice that these blacks who are committing this mass crime, they're committing mass crime clustered in certain areas or housing project hoods, in which people are generally poor and impoverished and much more relying on public defenders, and now the public defenders have backlog of cases and they can't defend a person to the fullest extent of the law. They get to the point where they're more interested in getting clearance than actually defending the person. They'll push for plea deals. Prosecutors know this. They push for more time to pad their stats. But this is the main reason why black folks get more time for the same crime. Not because of systemic racism, because of black people's behavior. Now, the second example that you'll run into is historical crime. Now, historical crime is essentially almost the same thing as end result thinking. It's just done from the historical standpoint. You know, they'll find some incident that took place in history that's 100% absolutely completely irrelevant to today, that has no impact upon black people today, and they will cry like it still exists. You know, perfect example of this would be the newest one that I'm just coming familiar with is Devil's Punch Bowl. This was an incident that took place back in, toward the end of the Civil War, when the Northern Army was in the South and they were freeing slaves from plantation. There was no plan on what to do with the slaves after they were free. But once these slaves started getting freed in the Mississippi area, in a certain area of Mississippi, Natchitoches, they all started to cluster near Natchitoches because what were they going to do? They're free now, but what are they going to do? As a result, the population of Natchitoches exploded, and the army, the Northern Army, basically clustered these blacks in a certain area and fenced them off, I guess, as far as population control. And we're told that they slaughtered these blacks, but in reality, they didn't. There was a disease outbreak. But you have black people crying about this as if it's still going on, and it's not. That incident is completely, totally irrelevant to anything going on with black people today. Yet they will act as if they will cry like it's still going on. No shit. Now, the third example of race hustler rhetoric that you'll run into is what I call fictitious notions. Now, fictitious notions is basically a bunch of nonsense that black people believe and are brainwashed with, that's just simply not true at all. Perfect example of this would be legacy of slavery. You've heard black people talk about slavery and try to see there's a legacy of slavery. What happened in slavery still affect us to today. The truth of the matter, that's BS. There's absolutely nothing about slavery that's impacting black people today. None of the problems in the black community have no association whatsoever with slavery. There's not one issue, one problem, one behavior amongst black people today that we can say that black people were doing this. They started doing it on the slave ship on the way here, and they continued to doing that all throughout slavery. And once slavery ended, they continue with it, and we still see it happening today. There's no evidence of this. All of the problems that we see happening in the black community are a product of the turbulent 60s, the third wave feminist movement of open love, free sex in a great society that basically bailed black women out of their bad choices for joining or getting involved in the feminist movement. So it's really a legacy of the great society, but it definitely had nothing to do with slavery. So there's absolutely no legacy of nothing of slavery. That's nonsense. It doesn't exist. It's just fictitious nonsense. But anyway, this is pretty much what race hustler rhetoric is. And like I said before, this is pretty much the extent of any argument that you have with black people on basically race in America. All they're going to do is regurgitate all the race hustler rhetoric that they've been brainwashed with, and if you know it, you will come in and destroy it. And at that point, the whole narrative will be dead. The whole race narrative will be dead if you understand that race hustler rhetoric is nonsense, and you know it, and you know how to defeat it. And that's why I make these videos, because I want to see race hustler rhetoric die the death it needs to die. There are no excuses for nothing holding a black person back in 2023. There's maybe 1923, sure. 2023, any black person crying about racism is completely 100% unequivocally full of shit. But anyway, y'all, if you run into a race hustler rhetoric, you watch my videos, you'll know how to defeat it. And as always, until next time.